I want to show how I download a Adobe Illustrator file into Inkscape and then render that Inkscape file into Sheetcam and get ready to cut a profile. So first I take my thumb drive that I have my file on and I slide it into my computer. It'll show that the drive's mounted here in just a second. Right here, the volume is mounted. I'm using the computer I received from Command CNC. The computer's running Linux or Linux, however you pronounce that. And it's pretty similar to Windows. I didn't have any problem figuring out how to use it. The Command CNC program and the hardware is good. I did find they do a lot of upgrading on their software, and the instruction book that came with it was lacking in what version they were using. So it took me a while to get everything set up and configured. Also, I will say that the tech support was less than stellar. I had a question, posed it to the owner, and he came back to me with a really smart aleck response and said I dicked everything up. So not very happy with the owner. Tech support pretty far lacking, but the software and the hardware seems to be a good product. So with that, I will come over here, start up Inkscape, and I apologize if I'm going too slow, but I'm trying to get this as comprehensive as possible because I had a pretty hard learning curve to get it all set up, figuring how to use it pretty much just on YouTube, and so I'm trying to help other people out. So first we want to set the document properties up for this particular page. I'll go to File, Document Properties, and I'm going to go to Inches and Inches, and the size, I want to make this size of this paper, I'm going to make it 24 inches wide, so I'll type 24, tab, and I want to make it 16 tall, 16 tab, and there's our picture. I can use the center button of my mouse, press down, and pull over the screen. Close this box out. Now I need to import my Adobe Illustrator file into Inkscape. So File, Import, and it's under Metal Art, and I'm working on a weather vane currently. And let me go to, maybe it's saved under something else. Looking for a Champ airplane. That's not it. I might have to put you on pause right here and find the file so we don't wait. There, I find the file. And so we're going to cut out this aircraft right here. And you can see it's an AI file, an Adobe Illustrator file. I modified it today at 1:56 Central Time, and we'll go ahead and open it. That's what the file is going to look like when we bring it in. So I'll click OK. There's our file. Left mouse click and we can drag it into position. One thing I've noticed about Inkscape and Adobe Illustrator, sometimes the shapes will be doubled. So I always like to check for the doubling of shapes I'll go to View, Display Mode to Outline, and you'll notice if there's a doubling of shapes, one of the lines will appear darker, and that looks fine to me. So we'll exit out of that, back to normal. Now all of these parts are all combined into this one group. But we have to split them so that when we go to Sheetcam knows which operation we want to do to each line. So what I'll have to do, I'll have to go to Object and Ungroup. I'm going to have to click Ungroup a couple times to get it to ungroup. So now these are each different little part of this drawing. So now what we can do to change these around so Inkscape or so Sheetcam knows how to cut it, I'm going to group all the small pieces together, such as these lines, then the next size, and then the outside. And by using that, I'll be able to instruct Sheetcam different protocols on how to cut it. So I like to start with my smaller ones first. So I'll select this one. And to select multiple ones, you have to hold down your Shift key. So Shift, select this one. And I'll just continue to select these, the smaller ones. And then I want to assign these a color. And I have my own color convention that I like to use. For the smallest ones, I like to use a fuchsia color, which is right down here. So I'll click Shift and then select fuchsia. That'll select that. Notice I was unable to select these pieces. I'll go ahead and select these again. So click, Shift, click, Shift, click, and now hold Shift key down, fuchsia. So these smaller ones will all be cut with the same protocol. The next protocol I like to use is using a red color. And this width right here, it seems like we could use a red with that. So we'll use red here, so we'll click. And I think all these numbers could be used as a red. So Shift with each of these. And now Shift red. So now these are all reds. Next one is blue for these bigger ones. So I'll go ahead and select all these. Now Shift blue. Turned all those blue. Now I notice this little one here I have left out. I like that one to probably be a red. So I'll click on it, Shift red. The outline is black, which we'll leave for that. Oh, I missed one right here. Click on that, and I'll assign that one to a blue. Now what you'll notice, if I would have forgot one of these on the inside and imported it into Sheetcam, I would have seen, say this one I had left black, it would show up yellow in Sheetcam because Sheetcam identified this as a problem as it's inside this bigger outline. So it would have recognized that as a problem. Okay, now it looks like we have everything color coordinated properly. We'll go ahead and save our progress. File, Save As, and I'll save it on my desktop. It's weather vane, and I'm going to save it as this number here. So I know what I have. And it's going to save it as an Inkscape SVG file. The reason I can't use the Adobe Illustrator file is because Sheetcam doesn't recognize that. So I'm unable to go straight from Adobe Illustrator right into Sheetcam. Let's go ahead and minimize this. Go to Sheetcam. This is the cutting program. Alright. We'll go File, import the drawing. We'll find where our drawing is. Let's see. It's on the desktop. Weather vane. There it is. It's important to set up your document in inches if that's what you use, because your scaling is going to be 1-to-1. If you forget and you use pixels or millimeters and you're in the United States and use inches as your scale, when you're drawing imports, the size is not going to be correct or what you expect it as. Want to make sure I use colors as layer names and use drawing name as part name. I'll click OK. It says removing duplicate vectors. Regardless of what I try to import, it always says that. Now this is a little bit interesting here. It shows this in white right here. I believe, let's see what happens, because we made that into a red, I believe. I think that's got selected twice. So anytime that there's something that really doesn't show up that's all red, I like to go back into the Inkscape drawing and see if we can't figure out what's wrong so this doesn't cut twice. Alright, so we can select Control, can make this big. Oh, I see a problem right there. We are not connected. So that is a problem. So we can go to get a better view. Let's go to View, or Display Mode rather, and Outline. Okay, we see how this is not connected, so that is a problem. So what we can do, we can edit this. We'll go to this section right here with the nodes, edit paths by nodes. We click on this. We can click on that node, shift, click on this node, and then we can just join these together. And I don't think that joined. Nope. You really get big, you'd see it didn't join. So let's try to get these to join up. I'm going to spread them apart so we can see better. And let's see. I'm not quite sure how to accomplish this. I'll try to bring it down again and see if it'll join. I didn't want to join there. I'm glad this happened because well, we'll both learn something. I know how to do it in Illustrator. You can select Control J and it'll join the two. Looks like up here we have some ways to join. Join selected nodes. What do you know about that? So let's try this. We'll have that selected. Shift that one. Right here. Join selected nodes. There we go. Now we can edit that a little bit. Bring that down. Bring that out. Make this just a little bit rounder. Let's see what everything else seems to be joined. Okay, that's joined, that's joined. Great. Okay, now we can go back to View and Normal. Alright, we'll resize that. select to control, resize that. Let's save that dude again. Save. Alright, let's try our Sheetcam one more time. We'll have to put a new job in there. We won't save that one that's incorrect. And we'll import again. See if we still have a problem. You don't want to cut when there's a problem, because when you're cutting, especially if it will overcut, then your plasma machine will not recognize that you have already cut it, and they'll try to cut a second time, and then you run the risk of running your plasma torch into the metal. As you can see right here, now that this is red again, so we're in good shape. So let's start with our fuchsia, and here's our new cut operation. And we're going to do inside offset. Color is fuchsia. I'm using 12 gauge steel. You can pull down here and see all the different types that comes with this program, all the preloaded things for the hypertherm. And we can also edit what we see. We see that the preset volts is 133. The delay, the tip size, I have a 45 amp tip in my cutter. Feed rate is 180 inches per minute. Well, if we look here, I have my feed rate at 140. The reason I do that is because my machine is not quite as rigid as I would like. It's a machine I made myself, and as much as I've tried to get it more rigid, it still has a little bit of slop somewhere in it, and it'll tend to produce a wavy cut at anything over 140. So that's what I usually try to limit my speed at. So our lead in, we have to think about how much lead in we want on these small parts. We can't have a 0.2 inch, because watch what will happen. We get an error. Could not fit the lead in. So we're going to have to edit that to fit the lead in lines so these will work. So we'll double click. And let's try maybe 0.05. And I always like to go half on the lead out. So 0.025. See if that works. Still doesn't work. So it's pretty small, so we're going to have to go even smaller. And you can also do no lead in. But I'm going to try to do something at least. There. 0.01, and will work for that. Now, next one, we'll go to the red. Still all the same settings. I'm going to have a little bit bigger lead in. How about 0.075, 0.3, 375. That works for us there. Okay, let's go to blue as our next color. And we can really have a nice lead in here. The purpose of the lead in is so you don't get any kind of blast through or a divot on your actual part you're cutting. If you would have zero lead in, you'd notice a little bit of a hole where the plasma torch plunged through. So I'm going to go to 0.2 and 0.1. That all works for that. And next we will do the outside offset. I do know color 0 is black. And we'll click OK there. And that's our completed cut path. Alright, now the next thing, to make this to be able to be read by the Command CNC program, we have to go and run the post processor and figure out where to save it. I've made a file on my desktop which is called G-code. I'm going to go down here under my weather vane project, and I'm going to save it right as the name we imported it as. Save. If you don't get this green check mark, something's wrong. But the post-processing is completed, so we're good to go. Click OK. Now, I need to turn on my Command CNC machine, the control box, so I can load up the Command CNC program. Okay, everything's loaded. We'll minimize this, minimize that. We go right here to Plasma with Limits. Maximize that, and we can open this. And we'll go to our desktop, G-code, and bring it down to our weather vane project. There's the one we want. Open it. That is our project we're going to cut. So, next video we'll show the process of how we cut this. Okay, now we're ready to cut our piece out, and let me see if I can show you some of the features on the Command CNC. If I can zoom into them. Okay, right now we see where the torch is, and I'll have to move that around to the 0, position. Torch is off, so the torch volts is 0. We see that the DTHC is on, and the DTHC is an auto. What that stands for is Digital Torch Height Control. What that does, it measures the voltage between the preset volts and the volts where the torch is. And then it adjusts accordingly. As we cut, I'll show you the torch volts and how it changes. And as it's changing, you can see that the up and down will flash on and off where it's adjusting the torch to try to keep the optimum torch height. So we can watch that as it's cutting. Some of the torches have a homing position where you see the home X, home Y, home Z. Well, my table is a home-built table, and I'm not that good at electronic stuff, so I just went ahead and I just manually set all mine all the time to torch 0, to 0 setting, and that's just as easy for me. So what we'll do, we have our airplane set up here, and next we want to set our torch up right here to the 0, position. And we'll want to start right at the corner of the metal, so I'm going to go ahead and move the torch over to where I want to start cutting, my 0, position. And right there, 0, as I move the metal over, I noticed that the metal is warped a little bit because I do have to cut the 4x8 sheets to fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a clamp to hold that metal down, or a weight, so that then my there's less vibration and movement in the metal as the torch is moving along. Okay, we're back. We've got everything set up. I got my torch 0'd. I'll zoom in and show you. See X, Y. X is 0, Y is 0. I zeroed my Z, which is the up and down, but I had to move the torch up to move it around so it doesn't drag on the plate. The thing I like about the Hypertherm plasma cutter is that it sets everything automatically. So there, I didn't have to touch it. This is an 85 amp cutter, and it shows it's set on 45 amps. So that's all set. It's ready to go. I got a couple green lights. Very minimal setup. I do have an air dryer, refrigerated air dryer. I've got a gauge here to make sure that my air pressure doesn't go too low. And we'll go ahead and start cutting. See what we come up with. And maybe if we'll get lucky, we'll have an error, and I'll show you how I fix the error. Sometimes the torch doesn't want to cut, and what the problem is that the parts inside get stuck, and then you get an error and it stops. And so you have to find out which line it stopped at, set your program to stop, and then start that cut again. And hopefully we'll show you that, what happens. So here we'll start out and we'll start cutting this part. I select run, and it goes to resume. I'll hit resume. Now it's going to move to that first line, and it's going to cut this line out. Move to the second line. Let's move over to the torch and we'll see what it's doing. It's cutting out all the small pieces. Remember the fuchsia pieces? Now everything works perfect. You can just stand back here, enjoy a cold beverage and watch it cut. But there's times that the part tips up and it gets in the way of the torch. And then it'll block the torch movement. So we have to watch that. Let me bring you back here so you can watch the volt and the digital torch height control as it's cutting. Okay, our preset volts are 133, and you can see the torch volts, how they change. And if you watch close, you see the up and down flash on and off. That's moving the torch up and down as it cuts. Okay, it's all done. Once the air stops, I'll go ahead and take it off the plasma table and we'll take a look and see how we did. Okay, let's move her over so we can see a little bit better. Not bad. You know, these parts here will knock right out. But you can see right here, possibly, well, let's take a look right here, and you can see how that blows through. And if you didn't have a lead in or lead out, that could transmit into this part here. The cut's pretty good. We do have more dross, more metal left here because I did do a little bit slower than book speed. If you did book speed and you had a machine that was nice and rigid, that dross would be minimal. But what I do is I just soak it in muriatic acid and that comes right off.